For a deeper look at all this, we're joined by CBS News political correspondent Ed O'Keefe, who's in our Washington bureau. Ed, good morning.
Good morning, guys. Happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday. The president calls this a getting to know you meeting plus. What's the plus, Ed?
Ideally, I think it would be trying to figure out what denuclearization looks like, and maybe, as he suggested, discussing the end of the Korean War. Either of those would be significant gets in the first meeting. But notice that in the last few days, the White House has tried to sort of dial back the expectations, saying this is something that could take several meetings, face-to-face meetings between Trump and Kim to sort out. Either way, they're moving forward with it, and pretty incredible that the president agreed to do this without some assurance that the Koreans would do something, whether it's begin the denuclearization process or, do something about human rights and the other concerns that the world community has about Kim's leadership.
We've seen Secretary of State Mike Pompeo sort of take the lead on this right now. Ed, do we know what type of preparations the White House is doing leading up to the summit?
Well, there's that incredible report from the Washington Post this morning that, among other things, they have to sort out who's paying for Chairman Kim's hotel. This is a country that, while it's been able to build up a nuclear weapons program, apparently can't afford to get a few rooms in Singapore next week. And so they're trying to sort out, among other things, who would pay for that, whether it's Singapore, whether it's the South Koreans, whether it's the U.S. They're also discussing details of the meeting. What exactly will they end up discussing at the table? And probably some other logistical matters. Remember, these have been pretty dramatic meetings that Kim has held with the South Korean and Chinese leaders. Undoubtedly, our president would like to see some dramatic flourishes when this meeting happens.
Ed, this, as we've said, has been an on-again, off-again, on-again summit. What are the risks here for the White House?
Well, the big risk is that, A, there's another round of will they or won't they meet, which at this late hour could be a real problem because there's so many logistical and diplomatic concerns. The other is that they meet and Kim agrees to nothing. And so all it ends up being is a dramatic photo op, which plays to Kim's favor. He wants to be seen as a legitimate leader on the world stage. Nothing better than getting a meeting with the U.S. president to prove that.
Ed, one other thing that we've been hearing now, the Wall Street Journal reporting about a potential summit between the president and Vladimir Putin. Do we know anything else?
Well, remember that this actually was first floated back in March. The president had said that he'd like Putin to come to Washington. We know now that the Russian ambassador, John Huntsman, is working on this. But again, here, what would they discuss? What would be the end result? Why do this other than a photo op? That isn't entirely clear.
And I want to talk quickly about the 10% tariff on aluminum and 25% tariff on steel the president announced this week. The economy is looking pretty strong right now. You're headed into a midterm. Why risk a trade war at this point?
It's a good question, and it's one of the reasons why so many Republicans, House Speaker Paul Ryan, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, disagree with this decision and have made that very clear publicly in the last few days. Several states across the Midwest and down in the South, of course, rely not only on agricultural exports, but manufacturing exports, and those potentially are going to get hit with retaliatory tariffs from Canada, from Mexico, from Europe. I talked to one guy yesterday, runs a small business, a porch installation business here in the Washington area. He said he's already been told by his aluminum suppliers to expect higher prices. If you're hitting small business owners like that all across the country, it potentially has an adverse effect on Republican congressional candidates this fall, and that's why they're very concerned about what the White House is doing.
Yeah, and Ed, any sense of when people might feel the hurt from those tariffs then?
Could be feeling it as soon as this coming week, because if you're somebody who's a steel or aluminum supplier and you've got to be planning for this, the prices could go up, which will trickle down, of course, to customers all across the country.
Ed O'Keefe in our Washington bureau. Thank you, Ed.
Take care.
And CBS News will have full coverage of the U.S.-North Korean summit beginning Sunday, June 10th. CBS Evening News anchor Jeff Glor will lead our coverage from Singapore through the June 12th meeting.